So we just finished out Q2 of the real estate market in Bonneville County. This includes Idaho Falls, Ammon, Iona. This is one of the biggest counties in Idaho, especially East Idaho. And there's a lot of movement going on, but there's also a lot of adjustments too. So in this video, I'm going to do an entire market overview of what the heck is happening in the market in Idaho Falls. This is super important if you're thinking about selling or if you're thinking about buying a home here in Idaho Falls or the surrounding areas. So without further ado, let's get started. What's up, guys? My name is Annika Wilder. I'm a local realtor here in the East Idaho area. If you're new to my channel and you want to know all there is to know about life in Idaho Falls and the surrounding areas, or even just the real estate market, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and you'll be the first to know when I put out a new video every single week. And if you're thinking about moving to East Idaho, whether it's next week or next year, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email, schedule a Zoom. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or help you as a realtor in this amazing market in this amazing state. Okay, now I'm going to share my screen so that I can show you all the thousands of data points that we track on our team, the Anderson Hicks Group. Now, this is super important that we look at the data because my opinion doesn't really mean anything if the numbers speak for themselves. So first, I'm going to show you just a quick market snapshot. Now, this is a product that we created, one of our sister companies created. It's called the Market Pulse, something that our team puts out every single month. And this looks at the data over long periods of time and different trends. Then we will look at the hyper-focused data that changes every single day. So first, in June 2024, we had 139 sales up until that point. And then this year, we're already at 154. So sales are up by 10.8%. Home prices over here, we're still in that mid 400,000 price point, but the home prices have gone up a little bit on average, about 2.4%. Now, new listings from year to year have gone down just about 4%. Interest rates are really floating around that same mid 6% range. I'm seeing some improvement there, and it kind of comes and goes. I'm hoping to see high fives by the end of the year, but we'll see what happens. Days on market. Now it's last year it took about 42 days to sell a house on average. Now on average, we are about 50 days. So it has gone up by about 8 days. And then inventory supply has also gone up. So we are moving into a more balanced market. Okay, now that was just a quick overview. Now let's get a little bit more granular. I really like to look at inventory levels over time. So right now, if you look here at this number, we are listed in June. In June, we were at 505 homes on the market. Now, this is up. If you go all the way back in this month, we did not have this high of inventory since 2015, where it was 615 homes on the market. So inventory is definitely on the rise, showing more moving towards a buyer's market, but we're still technically in a seller's market, according to the National Association of Realtors, but we are seeing some balancing here. In fact, what I am seeing is all of 2025 inventory has been up compared to previous years, which tells me homes are sitting a little bit longer, more people are selling, and it's probably because it's been enough time for people to feel like things are normalizing and for people to feel comfortable to sell again, as interest rates really just haven't improved as much as we would want them to since 2022. Another important piece that I really like to show, this is super important, especially for sellers, but it's also important for buyers that are thinking about trying to get a deal from people that are selling right now. So this is average sales price over time. So we're in that mid 400,000 price range. And since about 2022, we're still in that price range, that mid 400,000. Whereas back in 2019, 2020, we were in the mid 200,000. So if you bought a house in 2020 or before, you're sitting on a lot of equity. If you bought a house in 21 or 22, unfortunately, your house hasn't improved in equity as much as we would hope it to be. I'm finding that in 2021 and 2022, homes were really sold for top dollar. Things since then have either leveled out or have even come down. I've had several conversations recently with potential clients who are thinking about selling their home, and we're just not seeing a lot of improvement in their home, especially if they didn't come in with a huge down payment. So if they bought it for, let's just say, 445,000 in 2022 and they're trying to sell it now in 2025, it most likely will not sell for even what they bought it for unless they made major improvements like finish the basement or what have you. Now, obviously, if you need to sell, that trumps all market data because there's multiple reasons for selling. It's moving in with a loved one who is getting older and needs care, or a job transfer, or you need a new house because you're having babies and you need more space, or maybe you got a divorce, or maybe you're getting married. There's lots of different reasons to buy and sell real estate. So ultimately, what it comes down to is what is best for you. It's important to look at this data so you know what to expect. Some are making equity and using that to go into their next purchase, and some really are breaking even or taking a loss. But ultimately, I want you to have complete informed consent before you even sign with me or any realtor so that you can know before you even get to that point. Here is another graphic that shows the average price per square foot. Again, this talks about the price. You see in 2022, this just shows you just in a little bit of different way. I'm seeing 160 to 176 a square foot on average for the homes in Bonneville County. That was up significantly from the years before. I mean, look, in 2020, it was down to 97 a square foot, and then it climbed up to the end of the year. And then in 2021, climbed up all the way up to 156. 2022 is when it climbed up to that 176 per square foot. And since then, 2023, we're really floating around the mid 150s, low 160s. The highest I've seen was back in May for 165 a square foot for all of the average homes that sold in Bonneville County. This is a really simple way to see if you are overpaying for the house or if it's listed over market value. Now, it's just one metric. Obviously, we go off of comparables that we look at houses specifically that are similar to that. And whether you're buying or selling, any realtor should be pulling comps for you to make sure that you're not overpaying for the home. But on average, if you just multiply your square feet by about 160, that's where the market has been sitting for the last couple of years. So if you bought it for way above that, like 176 back in 2022, unfortunately, it just might not sell for what you need it to sell for. Our next metric is days on market over time. So again, this is tracking the same data from all the way from 2011 to 2025. I really like to look at just the last 5 years. Even though 2020 and 2021 were just crazy years, it's important for us to know what the market is doing. So on average, it's taking about 50 days to sell a home. In 2022, it was only taking 2 to 3 weeks to sell a house. Then it kept climbing up in 2023, 2024. Last year, we saw a lot of 40 to 50 days on market, and now we've been going pretty strong since January, above 60. Now we are in the middle of summer, and so houses are selling a little bit faster than they do in the winter time, but we are holding pretty steady around that 50 to 60 days on market. Now, if your house doesn't sell in 2 months, that doesn't mean it will never sell. I think sellers are getting kind of nervous because homes were selling so quickly for so long that anything that's taking longer than 2 months is making them feel like something's wrong. So it would be worth a conversation to look at the marketing, the condition, and the price. Ultimately, every house will sell for a certain price. We just have to decide what your motivation is, how soon you need to sell, and what your bottom dollar is. It might not be the right time to sell. And so that would just be something that we would want to communicate and talk about upfront so there aren't any surprises when we get your house on the market. Now, if we get a little bit more granular with price per square foot, this graph is price per square foot per price range. Now, if I just give you a blanket statement that homes are selling for 160 $160 per square foot, but you're looking below 200 or below 300,000, that might not be 100% accurate. Or if we're looking above 700,000, that might not be very accurate. So there are markets within markets, and it's important to look at this graphic too. So on average, homes below 300,000, we'll just say 300,000 to 350 are at 157. So it's still right in that average. But if we go up to 700,000, we are climbing to 179 a square foot, then 180 a square foot, all the way up to 200 a square foot, over $1 million. This often is because they are on acreage, or, it's a very custom home with a shop. And so of course your price per square foot will go up. There are also some very small homes on the market, like 600 square feet to maybe 800 square feet, that it's a 1-bed, 1-bath, or maybe a 2-bed, 1-bath home that are for sale for over $200, maybe even $300 a square foot, which sounds wild because a 600 square foot house should sell for $50,000, but out here it's selling for high 200,000. It's just a very different market. And some people are willing to pay that, even though the house is much, much smaller. So sometimes you'll get a better deal price per square foot with the more square feet that you buy. Something to keep in mind, that price per square foot, you don't always want to look as your end all and be all for a market value. Okay, now I want to move over to Area Pro. Now, Area Pro updates every single day. So this is hyper accurate information for all of Bonneville County. As you can see here, we have a 3.8 month supply of inventory for all of Bonneville County. Now, this is what the National Association of Realtors determines what is a buyer's market or a seller's market. Anything under 6 months supply of inventory is considered a seller's market. This just means that if we sold all the houses without putting any more houses on the market, then they would all sell in about 3.8 months. Anything above 6 months supply inventory would be considered a buyer's market. So we are still considered a seller's market, although there are markets within markets, and let me show you how that changes. But first, right now, we have 501 active listings in Bonneville County. On average, they have been on the market for 72 days. I am seeing this number climb even more. I think part of the reason is that there's more inventory, which is more choices. And when there's more choices, they tend to sit on the market longer. In the last 6 months, we had 783 homes sell with an average days on market of 56. And we sold about 131 per month with a percent of list price of 98.6%. What this means is the homes that are selling for about 98% of the list price. This is super important to understand, because when buyers are coming in and seeing that inventory is sitting on the market and saying, oh, I'm going to get a deal, let's come under asking by $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. We're not able to get buyers that much of a deal. That happens sometimes because sellers are needing to sell. They might be super motivated. I'm actually under contract with one that's 20,000 under asking. But on average, homes are selling for 98% of what the list price was. So keep that in mind. If you're coming in trying to find a deal, there's just not a lot of wiggle room that sellers are willing to make, since it still is a seller's market. However, sellers are very much willing to pay for closing costs, pay for the buyer's agent fee, which is culturally been going on for decades, and it's working very well. And they'll even pay for maybe a flooring allowance. There is some balance and flexibility here that both sellers and buyers are able to win in this market. Now, this tool is super cool. Let's get even more granular and see how there's markets within markets. So like I said, it's a seller's market for all of Bonneville County, but let's check out a different price range. If we go all the way up to 1.25 million, we are at 93 month supply inventory, which is wild. We are in a hyper buyer's market in this price range. If we go a little bit lower, so 1 million to 1.25, we are at 5.4 supply inventory, which is a very balanced. If we go 900 to 1 million, we're about a 4-month supply inventory, which is still a seller's market, but I think it's going to feel a little bit more balanced. So this is just showing that It is balanced in these higher markets. It is definitely in a buyer's market if you are in a budget over $1.25 million. If you go over 2 million, nothing has sold in the last 6 months over 2 million. So, and there's 11 active listings, 130 days on market. I bet your bottom dollar this is going to be a buyer's market too, because there's just not a lot of people in that price range. Now let's look at the average price range, which is that 400 to 450 mark. We're at a 2.5 month supply inventory. So definitely still a seller's market. If you're in that 400,000 price range, you want to definitely consider that what the sellers are asking for, they're most likely going to get, or at least they're going to get 99% of the list price. This is what the data shows. Out of 119 that have sold in the last 6 months, took about 2 months to sell, and it sold for that 99%. Let's look at 500 to 600,000 range. Now, this is showing in the last 6 months that it's a 5.9 month supply inventory. 87 homes on the market, 89 have sold in the last 6 months, and it took about 2.5 months to sell. And the ones that are sitting have been sitting for about 2 months. They did still sell for 99% of the list price, but this is showing that it's almost technically a buyer's market, but it's actually very, very balanced. I'm seeing some houses sell very quickly for a good price, and I'm seeing some just sit for no good reason, and because buyers just have more options. I think this data is so cool, especially for someone who didn't love data before, but it really helps give us insider details of what is going on right here in Bonneville County. Now, it's not my opinion. The numbers speak for themselves. We are seeing some changes. We are seeing some balance. Some buyers are winning. Some sellers are winning. There's a little bit of both. Now, this tool updates every day, like I said, and if you're looking at a specific price range that I didn't showcase here, just email me or comment below and say, hey, I would love to see what the market's doing, what the data is showing in this specific price range that I'm in. I'm happy to send you an email or a short video showing you what's going on in your price range so that you could be fully aware when you come to Idaho Falls or the surrounding areas, or if you're thinking about selling here in town, and I can show you that too. Here is one last graphic I wanted to show, which I think is super cool. A lot of people are asking, when should I buy? When should I sell? And this shows us when the most activity is happening. So in Q1, we have 20% of the homes sold in Q1. In Q2, 27, almost 28% of all the homes that sold in Q2. Q3, we're at almost 29%. In Q4, 23%, with a high in August. August actually has the most homes selling out of all the other months year round. Now it's very close to September, July, June, May, April, and there are some dips in November, December, January, and February. But as you can see, it's almost split down the middle between summer and winter, or the first half of the year versus the second half of the year. There is movement happening all year round. So what it really comes down to is, when is it best for you? Because there is inventory coming on the market year round. Yes, there's less inventory in the winter. Yes, fewer people want to move in the snow, but the data just shows that it is still happening all the time. And we are just begun Q3, which is the most activity happening in East Idaho. Now, this might be different in other markets in the world, but here in East Idaho, Q3 is just getting started. And I know there's going to be more inventory, more buyers, for sellers to win and buyers to win. I do see some leveling out here. I said something similar with my Q1 video, and I still predict that interest rates will come down to the high fives either by the end of the year or by beginning of next year. Now, there's some experts that are talking about these shifts a little bit, but they're being very strategic about it. But let's run this scenario with me. If rates come down below 6%, more buyers are going to come into the market, more competition. This often means home prices will go up, which is great for sellers, but for buyers, you're not actually going to save a lot of money if home prices are coming up, even though rates are coming down. What I think is a great move, if you can move and you're wanting to move, but you're waiting for those rates to come down, buy a house now. Buy a house when the rates are higher, but the home prices are lower. So then when the rates come down, you can refinance. Now, we don't know when that will be, so it is a risk. You have to make sure that you really do feel confident and comfortable paying for a mortgage for the next year or two or three. We just don't know when they'll come down, if they ever come down. But the point is that if they do come down, you can refinance and you're already in a home at a price that is reasonable versus when the price continue to rise as rates come down. I hope that makes sense. This is something I'm willing to talk over with you if you're thinking about selling or buying. The data is super important to know before you make any real estate moves. And my team tracks all of this data every single day, every single month, and I am willing to share it with you. Just email me, comment below, send me a text, and I'll be happy to help. Well, I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.